Disturbing video has surfaced online showing children in Libya who are reported to be under 9 staging a mock execution. Now, to discuss this, I am joined by a panel of guests this evening. We have first Dr. Lewis Harrington, who is a terrorism expert at Loughborough University. Then we have Mohammed Serkal, a UN representative from the also with the JSOR youth organization. And last, but of course not least, we have Mufassil Islam, an international human rights advocate and chairman of BOBA, the Online Bloggers Association. Now, Mufassil, since I got to you last, let's go ahead and start with you. What did you make of this video when you saw it?
Well, this is probably not the first time we came across similar video. If I recall, a few years ago, Sky News broadcasted a similar kind of situation where children were mocking, making actions like that on social media, and they were playful about terrorism acts. So this is not something new for me. I have been online as a social media activist for 11 years, and I have seen many, children in war-torn areas acting up terrorist acts like that in a playful mood. So this is nothing new to me.
And Dr.
This
Harrington,
is also
that something new
a
for
warning
you?
sign.
I apologize. If we can go ahead over to Dr. Harrington.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Sorry.
Just what your initial reaction was to seeing this video. Is this something that you've also seen before?
I mean, I've seen videos of young children reenacting the things that they see, and when I reflect on this from the long perspective, I think that these children suffering the amount of trauma that they're likely to have experienced. If we kind of look ahead to pathways, if there's any concern about terrorism, that pathways, the risk of substance misuse, turning to deal with that trauma that they've encountered. We know that a number of the individuals responsible for terrorism across Europe have struggled with substance misuse, and that pathway into sort of fundamentalist groups sort of begins at an early age through traumatic events. So that there's certainly it concerns me, but I don't think it's in any way something that can't be dealt with given sufficient trauma counselling to avoid them following in the same footsteps as other young men who've experienced trauma.
Now, just to point out quickly, the children, it is believed that they weren't actually mimicking ISIL execution. It's believed that they were actually copying what they saw in execution by a Libyan National Army commander that took place at the end of January, just to be clarified on that point. Now, Mr. Serkal, do you think that these children could pose a threat, or is this just kids being kids? They're just repeating what they see?
Well, good evening, and thanks for having me on this important issue. That we actually have raised this issue during the Human Rights Council sessions and meetings. What we've seen now is just a mocking video, but we've seen actual videos where children has been used to behead, to behead people in Syria and in Iraq. In Iraq as well, we heard stories when terrorist groups using the young people to be a spy on their families or to be a suicide bombers as well. So this video is just is not new. What we've seen worse is actual. That's what we're trying to do. Is we hope that we can work together with the UN to prevent such a videos to be shown online, because as you noticed, those children have seen this video somewhere, and they're trying to mock that video, and they're trying to copy that video. So as I suggest to the UN or to other NGOs or to my colleagues here, is to work on regulation where we have this kind of videos as an adult video should not be shown to children online. So we have to work on something to prevent those videos to be released and to be shown. That's how the children are learning about this.
Mufasil, I think you were trying to
may I
say
add something here?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Well, social media, has been failing us for quite some time now. There are online terrorist blogs, and I am aware of various online terrorist platforms, even on social media like Facebook. The way Facebook and even YouTube is still up and running. There are very many terrorist accounts where videos such as this, even real videos, as my friend here said, are being shown and being run by known terrorists. And how is it going on? How is it happening? Now, this is coming to our home, because if you recall, the British child named Isa Dari, he in fact blew up a few people on bus in a terrorist act when he was about 4 years of age, when his mother was in fact glorifying the terrorist act. So such acts are terrifying for us, because our children are being brainwashed as well. There are various projects which proves that almost 4,000 children were called to projects like Channel Project to in fact make them aware of what they're supporting or believing to be wrong. There are NSPCC hotlines where parents can, in fact, take the help to monitor or help their children. They are afraid of being radicalized. So this proves that this is coming to our shores as well. And now I must add something else as well. I don't think just the trauma counseling will going to help. We need to find out the root cause behind it, which is the radical and the extremist understanding of religious views, and especially of Islam. That's what is being used by Islamist terrorist organizations and groups like IS or other similar organizations, and they glorify martyrdom of children even. And how they're being brainwashed, we need to find out the root strategies they are adopting and how children are being attracted to it, because it is very easy to in fact convince children and use them as suicide bombers or to carry out orders.
The evidence that I've looked at is that the individuals that are actually carrying out terrorist attacks, and in particular suicide attacks, often have been escaping chaotic lives. That actually their engagement with what we'd call extremist material, it doesn't happen until many years down the line. So when we talk about root causes, we really need to understand what attracts individuals to groups like Al-Mujahirun, Islam for UK, Islam for Belgium, Sharia for Belgium. What attracts them to those groups in the first place? Because I think we look too much at what they've been interested in the year or so beforehand, believing that was the catalyst, so believing that was the root cause, when it was nothing more than the catalyst. We're looking at very troubled individuals. In the case of the individual responsible for killing of Soldier Rigby, the Westminster attack, the Paris attack, the Anis Amri in Germany, these were the guys living very, very troubled lives. And often substance misuse was a big problem. And if we understand that the reasons that people engage in substance misuse is because of childhood trauma, and that if we understand that, if we've got a large number of young guys, of children who have experienced that kind of trauma, is it possible?
That may be partially true. That may be partially true, not the whole truth. That's not the whole truth. I agree with you. That's
I'm not saying it's the whole truth, but it's certainly a large part of it. The data supports that.
Well, I'm talking about, for example, the Bangladesh, the terrorist attacks.
And it could be extremism, but the idea behind this, those kids are copying what they've seen. Like what they do when they watch, a wartime movie, or when they play a game of I don't know, so many war games or fighting games. They copy this kind of stuff on their own.
Children grow up watching war all the time.
Exactly.
Children see war on television all the time, and they don't go up and commit terrorist acts.
Doesn't support that.
Some of them come from troubled areas, but we noticed a lot of them.
Children are playing
from Europe and other places.
Gentlemen, it's very hard to understand when everybody's talking at once.
So
if we could go ahead and
that's what we
let
suggest
Mohammed
is to prevent. Let's work on prevention. Preventing this kind of movies and this kind of videos to be shown on the internet.
The movies that
at the moment there's no regulation. There's no
doing nobody's suggesting that movie violence causes homicides.
That kids being Sorry? No,
Well,
we've
nobody's
seen
suggesting that
different cases. I'm
anybody
talking about
watching
these movies where the children...
I'm talking about kids that have experienced direct trauma and violence and war, that kind of trauma is absolutely indicative of, shows that they're the kind of individuals who, when they grow up, are almost certainly going to be vulnerable to radicalization, because they would have had they would be looking for escape. In those, I would believe it'd be any country.
That's why we need
about
prevention.
bringing these young guys.
That's what we need. That's what we need.
The only prevention is to deal with the underlying cause. And for a number of these guys, it's going to be the trauma they encounter. They've been in war zone. If they're mirroring and they're executing their friends or mock executions, what have they been watching? Was it online, or really were they watching it firsthand? And if they've watched it firsthand, guaranteed they're going to struggle with mental health. They're going to have a great number of issues. And I think that given that it was wrong to invade Libya, we should do something.
I agree with you.
I can't really fully agree with you there. No, I cannot, because the root cause is not that. No.
Okay, let's go ahead and let Mufasil respond.
Right. Right. First of all, if you look into the history of Islamist terrorism recently in a country where I was born, Bangladesh, you will see most of the terrorist attacks in the capital of Dhaka was carried out by youths who, in fact, came from affluent families. They had a very good life. In fact, they were brainwashed by this Islamist terrorism, not only by videos, but by theological understanding of it. And when it comes to children, children are not being able to be children because of the upbringing they are getting, because they are the Islamic extremist ideology. It in fact denies you of any kind of recreation that a children will need to grow up. For example, they will not be allowed to play with certain toys. They will not be able to draw pictures of human beings. They will not be able to listen to music. They will not be able to hang out with some certain type of friends or even girls. These are all in fact add up.
Well,
so it's always
that happens
because
in all
they are
different
being
kinds of
focused into
cultures.
It's not right.
We do have very little time left. Mohammed, I believe that you wanted to respond.
No, it doesn't.
Gentlemen, if we could go ahead and let Mohammed respond. We do have very little time left.
Yeah, this is an excellent point. Exactly what they have learned and when they have been educated. This is what we're talking about, is prevention through education. Some of the education in some countries, they educate the younger kids on radicalization, on extremism, right from the younger age. So that's what we're calling for. We call some regulations to prevent such a behavior, either on online videos or watching. We have to regulate the education curriculum. Some of the countries require to be looked into and see how the education curriculum is being taught in schools. This is one thing we'd ask the UN to do so as well, also to look at monitoring the education curriculum that meets the human rights standard. They can't teach the kids not to play that toy, or not to talk to that person, or to hate that person, or to love that person. A kids cannot make a choice. A kid's only copying what they've seen. And my colleague says here, yes, they've seen some execution in front of them in Libya, in Syria, and in Iraq. They've seen their families being killed. They've seen their father being headed as well. That's what they're turning out to. So that's what we're trying to work out. Some of the roots.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, all of you, for your time tonight. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss this issue. We have Dr. Lewis Harrington, a terrorism expert at Loughborough University, Mohammed Sarkal, a UN representative, also with the JSOR Youth Organization, and Mufasil Islam, an international human rights advocate and chairman of BOBA. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time this evening.